and welcome back to Bitesize Boxing. So I'm going to try and make this one as brief as I can because I didn't expect to be making this video. I'm absolutely knackered if you can't tell. I'm still travelling out here in Asia. I have just recorded my Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn sort of 2 preview, prediction, whatever you want to call that. I'm going to get that one uploaded as soon as I can, but I'm also going to try and get this one out first because the news has just broken that Joseph Parker has failed a drugs test. Now, when the news initially broke, I wanted to give it a bit of time, and I have done for a couple of hours just for the details to kind of come out a bit more, because at first all we got was a statement from Queensbury saying that Joseph Parker had tested positive for a banned substance. And straight away, of course, you're thinking PEDs. Then it come out it was cocaine, and you're thinking, all right, okay. Then it come out it was a test taken the day of the fight. Right, now we need to really kind of rewind, because for me, I immediately thought, okay, this is going to be a David Benavidez job, where, of course, David Benavidez tested positive for cocaine, but that was the day, I think, after the fight, where he'd clearly gone out, he'd celebrated his win, done a bit of the naughty, nose candy, and that was what it was, right? But in that situation, you can kind of understand it. I'm not saying you can condone it, especially as a professional fighter, but you can understand that, he's gone out, he's enjoyed his win, he's celebrated a bit, he's probably, he's been a bit naughty, but in that context, you can get it. The reason I was waiting to hear that it was the day of the fight is that suddenly that brings in a lot of ramifications. So this is a guy who was clearly doing it in the lead up to a fight. Where do we start with this one? So the first thing I want to know, and this is quite interesting, I don't know the exact half-lives depending on the test, but I want to know what kind of test it was. Was it a hair follicle test, a blood test, a saliva test? I would assume it would be a blood test, and I don't exactly know the half-life of a blood. In fact, I've got a laptop in front of me. Again, sorry, I normally would edit something like this in. Let's have a look. Right, half-life cocaine, but very short, about 1.5 to 2 hours. So, that gives me even more questions. So, apparently the half-life in a blood test for cocaine is about 1.5 to 2 hours. So you're looking at it being fully out of your system in about 4 hours. So, we need to know what time this test was taken and what kind of test it was. If it's a hair follicle test, I know the half-life is an awful lot longer. It's something that can stay in your system for up to be detectable for normally like a month plus, something like that. If it was a hair follicle test, you can understand it a little bit more, because then suddenly you can go, well, I say understand it, you can't condone it. It means he was doing it in the lead up to a big fight, which is seriously not a good look. And especially when it's in the sort of closing stages of a training camp when you should be winding down, going out, doing a bit of how you're doing, that's not good. But at least, again, if it's a hair follicle test, this isn't a guy who was, having a bit of a merry time, in the couple of days before the fight. I don't know about saliva, but last time I checked, I think saliva is something like a couple of days, which would make them, well, I say make the most sense. That one, I suppose, in the couple of days leading up to the fight, was he using cocaine? I don't know. That spun my head a bit. I'll be honest with you. When I checked on my laptop, I was expecting it to say the half-life of a blood test to be like a few days or something like that. And I go, right, well, he was clearly using in, the days leading up to the fight, and that's really bad. But if we're talking about a couple of hours, I don't know. I'm now completely spun. My head is spun. I don't really know what to make of all this. I think we really need to wait until we can find out some more details of this. Was this something, was this a test that was taken after the fight? Maybe 2 or 3 hours after the fight, and he's gone out and had a merry time? Is that what it is? Was this taken before the fight? And if it was taken before he stepped in the ring, we've got to have serious questions. What the fuck was that doing in his system before a fight, especially for a drug with such a short half-life? Again, cocaine isn't marijuana. Cocaine isn't like most other drugs, And even something like weed, for example, you can, I say, kind of understand it. If someone's having a bit of a puff here and there to chill out, I'm not saying it's right, for a professional athlete. I'm not saying it's ideal, but you can kind of allow that a bit. You can kind of see it, stress, winding down a bit of a training camp. I can kind of see it. If in the closing days of his training camp, he's been going out, getting on the bugle. I mean, that's a fucking terrible, that's awful optics for Joseph Parker from a professionalism point of view. I mean, his reputation will be in tatters from this. And more on Joseph Parker now. I mean, this is a guy who's in his, early to mid-30s. He's got an awful lot of miles on the clock. This was another go at a world title. Of course, he lost his world title back in 2018, his WBO title, that was to Anthony Joshua in a unification fight. He's slowly rebuilt since then. He's worked his way back up to a title shot, and then at the final hurdle, fallen against Wardley. And now it's come out he's tested positive for cocaine. I mean, providing there is no get out for this in terms of, you know, he can explain this away, or it comes out maybe that this was tested, say, 4 hours after the fight, and he went out, did a bit of sniff, bit naughty, letting his hair down. If that's what it is, I'm not saying it's right, but you can kind of understand it. If it comes out that this is a test that was conducted like right before the fight, and this was something that was going on during training camp, then stick a fork in Joseph Parker. He's done. He's done. It's as simple as that. He's done. There's no way back from that. But you let me know what you think. Again, I'm sorry I've been a bit all over the place. I'm heavily sleep deprived, been traveling for like a ridiculous, just driving for tens of hours the last few days. I'm knackered as it is. But I didn't expect to be making this video. I didn't expect to be talking about this subject. And yeah, my head's still a bit spun. As I said, I expected when I check the blood test half-life for it to be a few days. I did not expect it to be a couple of hours. That now gives me more questions than answers. So you let me know if you know any additional information, maybe if something else has come out since I've uploaded this. But yeah, I'd be very interested to know. And yeah, what a strange subject. Boxing, eh? Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.